You know, Elizabeth, I thought I was pretty good at English. I can hold a conversation, watch movies without subtitles, but then sometimes I'll say something, and I just know it sounds a little off, like a tiny, almost invisible mistake.
Johnny, you've hit upon a fascinating linguistic phenomenon. These are often not egregious grammatical errors, but rather subtle infelicities that can indeed betray a non-native speaker, even one with an otherwise advanced command of the language.
Infelicities? See, that's one of those words I'd never use. I'd just say, yeah, it sounds a bit weird. But you're right, it's those little things that make you go, something's not quite right.
And that, my dear Johnny, is precisely what we're here to illuminate today on the English Commute. We're going to dissect 5 common yet subtle English mistakes that even advanced speakers frequently make, and, more importantly, how to rectify them.
Welcome back to the English Commute. I'm Johnny.
And I'm Elizabeth. Let's get to work. Our first subtle mistake, Johnny, often revolves around the incorrect use of prepositions, particularly when discussing time or location in slightly more complex contexts.
Prepositions? Oh man, those tiny words always trip me up. Like, is it on the weekend or at the weekend? I swear I hear both.
Indeed, while both are acceptable depending on regional dialect, on the weekend being more prevalent in American English and at the weekend in British English, the subtle error often occurs with verbs that imply movement or duration. For instance, saying, I will visit you on next Tuesday.
Wait, what's wrong with on next Tuesday? Sounds fine to me. I usually just hear people say, see you next Tuesday.
A more elegant way to phrase that would be to omit the preposition entirely. When you use words like next, last, this, or every before a day or a period of time, the preposition is often redundant. So it should simply be, I will visit you next Tuesday. The same applies to I saw her last week, not I saw her on last week.
Oh, so it's like the next or last already tells you when, so you don't need the on. That's actually super helpful. I always thought I needed a preposition there.
Precisely. It's a subtle omission that significantly enhances the natural flow of your speech. Our second subtle mistake often involves the overuse or misuse of adverbs, particularly those ending in "ly," in an attempt to sound more formal or emphatic.
Like, I literally died laughing, or I'm totally exhausted. I hear those all the time.
Those are indeed common colloquialisms, Johnny. However, the subtle error I'm referring to is when an adverb is used unnecessarily or when a stronger verb or adjective would convey the meaning more effectively. For example, saying, he quickly ran to the store.
What's wrong with quickly ran? He ran, and he was quick about it. Seems logical.
The nuance here is that the verb ran inherently implies speed. To say quickly ran is often redundant. A more elegant way to phrase that would be to use a more precise verb, such as he sprinted to the store or he raced to the store. Similarly, instead of she very happily smiled, consider she beamed or she grinned happily.
So, instead of adding a word to describe the action, I should try to find a better word for the action itself. That's a good tip for sounding more efficient, I guess.
Indeed, it demonstrates a richer vocabulary and a more nuanced understanding of verb choice. Our third subtle mistake, Johnny, is the misplacement of adverbs of frequency, such as always, never, often, or sometimes.
Oh, I know this one. It's like, I always go to the gym, not always I go to the gym, right?
You're on the right track, Johnny. For simple present tense, adverbs of frequency typically go before the main verb, but after the verb to be. However, the subtle error arises with compound verbs or auxiliary verbs. For instance, saying, I have always wanted to visit Paris, versus I always have wanted to visit Paris, versus I always have wanted to visit Paris.
Okay, so I have always wanted sounds right, but why? In the real world, I usually just hear people say it however it comes out.
A more elegant way to phrase that, and the grammatically correct placement, is for the adverb of frequency to come between the auxiliary verb, like have, will, can, and the main verb, So, I have always wanted, I will never forget, or you can always count on me. Placing it after the main verb or at the very beginning of the sentence can sound slightly unnatural to a native ear, even if the meaning is clear.
So, it's about the rhythm, the flow of the sentence. It's a tiny thing, but it makes a difference.
Precisely. It's these subtle rhythmic and structural patterns that contribute to sounding truly native. Our fourth subtle mistake often involves the overuse of filler words or phrases that, while common in casual speech, can detract from clarity and conciseness in more formal or articulate contexts.
You mean like, like you know? I'm guilty of that, Elizabeth. It's like my brain needs a little pause button.
Those are indeed classic examples, Johnny. However, the subtle error I'm referring to extends to phrases that are used almost as crutches, such as starting too many sentences with so or actually, when there's no logical transition or correction being made.
Oh, I do that. I'll be like, so I went to the store, or actually, I was thinking. It just feels like a natural way to start.
While these can be acceptable in very informal conversation, their overuse can make your speech sound less deliberate and more hesitant. A more elegant way to phrase that would be to simply begin with your main point. Instead of, so, I went to the store, simply say, I went to the store. Or, if you need a transition, use a more precise one like, therefore, consequently, or, in addition, depending on the logical connection.
So, it's about being more direct and confident, cutting out the verbal clutter.
Exactly. It conveys a greater sense of authority and clarity in your communication. Our fifth and final subtle mistake for today, Johnny, is the misuse of certain common phrasal verbs or idioms, where a slight variation can completely change the meaning or sound unnatural.
Phrasal verbs are my nemesis. They're like mini puzzles. Look up, look into, look after. They all mean different things.
Indeed, their idiomatic nature makes them particularly challenging. The subtle error often occurs when a learner uses a phrasal verb that is close in meaning but not quite right for the context. For example, saying, I need to make up my English skills, when you mean to improve them.
Make up my English skills? Yeah, that sounds weird. I'd probably just say, I need to get better at English. What's the right phrasal verb there?
A more elegant way to phrase that would be to say, I need to brush up on my English skills, or I need to work on my English skills. Make up typically refers to compensating for something missed, like make up for lost time, or inventing something, like make up a story. The nuance here is precision. Another common one is confusing take off to depart, or remove something, or go on a date. To depart, or remove something, or go on a date.
So, it's not just knowing the phrasal verb, but knowing the exact situation to use it in. That's tough.
It is, Johnny. But with consistent exposure and careful attention to context, you will develop that intuitive understanding. The key is to pay attention to how native speakers use them in various situations. Key takeaways for your English commute.
All right, Elizabeth, this has been incredibly insightful. For our listeners who want to sound truly advanced, what are the top 3 takeaways from today's episode?
Firstly, pay meticulous attention to prepositions, especially when used with time expressions like next or last. Often the most natural choice is to omit them.
So, see you next week, not on next week. Got it. Less is more sometimes.
Secondly, choose strong verbs over weak verbs with redundant adverbs. Instead of quickly ran, consider sprinted. This makes your language more impactful and concise.
Upgrade your verbs. Make them do the heavy lifting.
And thirdly, master the correct placement of adverbs of frequency, typically between the auxiliary and main verb, and be mindful of the subtle distinctions in phrasal verbs and idioms.
So, I have always wanted, not I always have wanted. And brush up on my English, not make up my English. This is actually super practical stuff, Elizabeth. I feel like I can actually use this to sound way more natural.
That's the objective, Johnny, to empower our listeners with the tools to refine their English to a truly advanced level, moving beyond mere correctness to genuine fluency and naturalness.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the English Commute. I'm Johnny.
And I'm Elizabeth. We hope you feel more confident to tackle those subtle linguistic challenges.
Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this episode with anyone who wants to polish their English to perfection.
And we'd love to hear from you. In the comments below, tell us which of these subtle mistakes you've made or a new tip you learned today. We can't wait to read your insights.
Until next time, keep commuting, keep learning, and keep refining your English.
Goodbye for now, everyone.
See ya.